there. Thanks for joining us today and giving us your time. And this is the first Blackbird webinar of 2022. And I know you're all thinking, why did I have to wait 3 weeks? Well, we apologize for that, but I think it's going to be a really interesting session today. And we've got a bunch of other fantastic ones lined up as we move through the year as well. So I'd like to introduce and say thanks for joining us to Alex O'Hagan, who's with us on the webinar today. Hi, Alex.
Hiya, thanks for having me, Ollie. Really
no worries. Thanks for joining us. What we're going to do today is investigate and talk a little bit specifically about how IMG are using Blackbird and other things to do with cloud production and what's important to Alex and his team in the world today. IMG is actually one of, I think, our longest running partners. Have been using Blackbird for longer than anyone would guess. I think it's getting close to at least 5 years now. Something like that.
I think it's longer than that. I had 2014 in my notes, but
wow. Okay, there you go then. Well, you've added a couple of years on even to what I knew about it. So it should be, I think, great for everyone to get some insight into what's happening there. For us, we obviously are very happy to talk about ourselves, but I always think the most interesting thing for other people to hear about is how it's being used out there, day to day, and why that makes a difference to our customers. So we're extremely appreciative of both Alex and IMG for joining us today. Now I'm gonna hand over to Alex in a minute, and as usual, what we like to do first is just give a little bit of background and context to what IMG is doing, what Blackbird is doing, and what we're talking about today. But otherwise, Alex is going to share his screen and run us through a bunch of the use cases that are at place at IMG. And then off the back of that, I might kind of expand a bit on some of the more advanced features and some of the different functionality that's within Blackbird. But we will have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. If you look to the bottom of your Zoom webinar window, you'll see a Q&A button. Please just pop questions in there as they come to you. We might answer them as we go, but if not, we will get back and answer as many as we can, if not all of them, before we finish up today. Excellent. So I'm going to hand over to you, Alex, and let you do a bit of an introduction to IMG and what you're doing there in general.
Thanks, Ollie. Yeah. So I'm Alex. I head up the social and digital team at IMG, which we work with a variety of sports federations, creating different kind of content from World Feed, which is where we use Blackbird a lot. We have shoot related content, and that content normally sits on sports federation social channels. It's distributed to broadcast partners as well. So we do a real kind of variety of content. And I know when I speak to Ollie before, IMG is quite a big organisation. So I've stolen some slides from another deck, which hopefully can kind of give people a bit of an overview of IMG, where our department sits in general, and just some of the skill sets. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. It worked earlier, didn't it? Okay, can you see that, Ollie?
Not yet. There we go. Yep, we can see that now.
Brilliant. So IMG's a big organisation, as I said, and there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff that I'm not aware of as well. Where we sit is our production team sits within media and events. So that is, media events is everything from production of television to world feeds to what our team does, which is digital content, to things like Winter Wonderland, an IMG event, the ice skating rink at Natural History Museum is an IMG event. So it's a massive company. And there's a lot going on, and our production unit tries to kind of support that in various different ways. So within the team that I work in, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's cross-channel and branded content. And within that, we've got social and digital content, which I head up. Then we've got branded content, owned and operated. Owned and operated is things like magazine programming that IMG does. So many of you will probably remember things like Trans Old Sport, which is a thing that everyone watched from my sort of age growing up. Yeah. Programs like InCycle, which you guys might have seen, Golfing World. They're IMG properties, and there's social content created for that. There's also some magazine programming involved as well. Then we've got an audio team who do live audio. A lot of the federations that we work with, they do content for those guys as well. So that could be live, that could be live at the Open. That they also do podcasts as well. So that's like a real growing part of our business as well. And then we work quite closely with Rolex as well. We've got a dedicated team working with Rolex called Evoke, who do high-end campaigns as well. So what that means is within our team, we've got kind of anything and everything that you can kind of hopefully hope for in a content offering. So that's everything from kind of self-editors, creative producers, videographers, podcasters, community managers. The idea being that anything other than high-end live, we can cover. So we've done smaller events, for example, with the LTA, they had a wheelchair tennis event. We did all streaming of that event because it was kind of a one-camera event, and it was kind of live directed in a simple box connected to a laptop. But yeah, anything and everything other than a big live presentation, in theory, our department can do, and we have that skill set to execute it. And like I said, that means it goes across a variety of different areas. So that's short form content, like what we're going to talk about a little bit today, long form like magazine programming, live audio as well, and then it obviously gets distributed on social. So we've got community managers as well who will post on social as well. I'll just stop sharing that for a second so I can see my notes. Is that off your screen now, Ollie?
Yep, you're all good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think we discussed a little bit of like why we use Blackbird, and we were quite early adopters. We started working with Blackbird, I think it was in 2014. I hadn't been at IMG that long, and our department was kind of in its infancy, but we were looking for a tool to create short form content around football rights and various rights that IMG had, which hadn't really sold the digital rights for. So random leagues like the Eredivisie or the Chinese Super League, Russian Premier League, all these kind of things, which amazing goals could happen and these moments could happen, but no one really had a desire to own those digital rights. So we had a small team, basically it was me and one other person, kind of clipping up those moments. And then with the growth of social and publishers and people like Give Me Sport, like even L'Equipe in France as well, when they distributed those clips, there was kind of a desire to have this content pushed out more quickly, essentially. Yeah. So that's when it would have predated you, I think, but that's when we started working with Blackbird. Very simple, simple kind of offering, really. I think we had like one box maybe, just taking in some selected matches, and it would kind of potluck what might come in each week. And that wasn't like a great money generator or anything, but it was a good way of establishing that we can do this. We have the skill set in-house, and we know that there's a potential audience for this content, right? And then the first big thing that I kind of oversaw was in 2015, the Rugby World Cup was here in the UK, and IMG Studios was the International Broadcast Centre, and there was a need for digital content. So that was the first kind of big scale event we did, and we used Blackbird for that. And on the back of the success of that really drove kind of more awareness within IMG that we needed this department and we needed to kind of attack this more broadly, really. So that gave us an opportunity to go, we know we can do the content, we've got the facility to do that, working with you guys as well. We know we can execute it. How are we going to kind of make this content, make our team and the content create grow? So on the back of that, we kind of targeted sports federations to do what we did for Rugby World Cup, but for various events throughout the year. And then, the kind of the news aggregator stuff kind of diminished slightly, but like I said, it gave us an opportunity to work with these larger sports federations. What I was probably going to do next, Ollie, is then go through maybe some of the clients we work with now.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna pinch the spotlight just for a minute or two. Before we get stuck into the detail, I think I'll give a bit of context from the Blackbird side, because we always, although we've got a growing audience of friends out there, we always end up with a few people on these webinars at least who might not have too much background. But I think before I do that, Alex, it's great to get that view into the structure and the history, because you guys were certainly ahead of the trend, starting to put in digital first cloud production tools eight years ago in 2014, and we've seen that grow and grow, and I think we see that everywhere now. So as you said, not just core broadcast workflows with high levels of expertise and very, very point dedicated tools for dedicated jobs, but now a growth into multiple other roles, multiple different types of content creation, and supporting the use of that throughout the business is something we talk about all the time today. So it's really interesting to kind of hear how you started that process quite a long time ago. So we will dig into those use cases, as Alex said. I know that's everyone will be looking forward to that, but very briefly, just to do a bit of an introduction to Blackbird, who, for anyone who isn't particularly familiar with us, as you may have gathered a bit from what Alex was just talking about, essentially Blackbird is a cloud-based and browser-based video clipping and editing solution. So in a nutshell, what we do is we allow any user from any location to log in a standard web browser, access their content, and this can be, as in the case of IMG, predominantly live stream based media, where you're editing on live streams just a few seconds behind live, or it can be repositories of files that exist on premise or in the cloud, or literally anywhere. So really we're about access, giving people instant, easy, remote access to their content, allowing them to do a variety of types of content creation, from clipping through to sequencing and logging and editing, and eventually publishing out, obviously, to different endpoints. And Alex is going to go a bit deeper on what the types of content creation IMG are doing with the tool today. But I can summarize really some of the main reasons that our customers come to us here. As I said, a lot of what we do is about speeding up both access to media, but also the turnaround of it. We've had customers who have moved from traditional record and growing file-based workflows through to Blackbird and operating in the cloud, and cut down turnaround times and end-to-end production times significantly. Obviously, being in the cloud and being in the browser brings a huge amount of flexibility in, especially because of the way Blackbird's architected. We don't have virtual machines, connectivity issues running for every single user, or any media movement in the background, and so on. So really kind of adds the true scalability of the cloud into these types of workflows. And on top of that, because of the technology that Blackbird has, our own core patented tech that runs inside the platform, and the way that we architect it and cut down on the time and the complexity of workflows, it means we can save significant amounts of cost on infrastructure, but also deliver one of the most sustainable solutions out there as well, in terms of really being as efficient as possible in every way across all of our workflow. And this is evident if we look at some of the customers that use us today. Obviously, we're getting a great insight into how IMG are doing this today, but Blackbird's used across other service providers, major broadcasters within sports and news and entertainment production, sports teams, clubs, leagues, federations, and all sorts. So really anybody who's looking to add those efficiencies and improve how they can use their content and deliver their live and file-based media out to different endpoints can benefit from the technology that we've got at hand there. Excellent. So it gives you a bit of an intro, and as I said, I'm going to come back into a bit of a deeper dive later on. But at this point, I'm going to give my voice a rest and let Alex run us through some of the use cases at IMG.
Great, thank you.
Great, Alex, you can fill the screen back.
Yeah, I'll try and grab it back. So what I was going to do was, we work with a variety of different sports, like I said, different sports federations and different events. And why Blackbird's quite good is because the software is quite malleable, what you can do with Blackbird, and a lot of it is where you can push that content to as well. So we'll talk about a little bit how we will use it for IMG, for EuroLeague, which is an IMG joint venture, which, for those of you who don't know, it's probably only second really to the NBA in terms of quality in basketball. Yeah, it's an IMG JV, so IMG run the events, they do a lot of the media rights as well, and as a result, they do all the World Free production and the digital content as well. Then we work with Amazon Prime as well. So Amazon, some people wouldn't really be aware, but Amazon have got quite a lot of tennis rights. So there's various Masters events that Amazon Prime have rights to, US Open as well, obviously Raducanu won as well. So we do the daily, IMG does the World Free production, and again, as a result, we do some digital content on the back of that. There's daily wraps each day. That's a slightly different offering really. It's not traditional digital or social, it's half an hour programming. And then we also work closely with the RNA on a variety of projects as well. So I'll talk a little bit about how we work with the RNA across the Open as well. So I'll try and share my screen again. Okay. You can see me, yeah?
Yep.
So I'm not going to bore everyone with exactly how we use the platform or how we edit things and go through the minutiae really, because there's people far more talented than me that do that, really. I'll just do the talking. But yeah, for EuroLeague, we do anything and everything for them. If you look across their social, everything from static design, kind of teasing upcoming games, to in-play content, all that editorialized content like top 10s, player interviews, things like that. We do all that content. Where we use Blackbird primarily is on game nights, which can be pretty hectic. You know, there's a EuroLeague and Euro Cup, which is kind of the Europa League equivalent. So some nights there will be, in the past, there's been kind of 12 Euro Cup matches and 10 EuroLeague matches or something on a night, and it's pretty chaotic. And we'd have multiple people, probably one person per game, working on each match, and then we generate variety of different match highlight packages from each. So there will be your traditional 3 or 4 minute, which will sit on YouTube. Then there'll be a 2-minute version for Twitter. Then we'll have a news access one, which will be 5 minutes, pretty rough edited, and that's distributed to news agencies like SNTV to kind of recut themselves. So where Blackbird really helps with that is building this content on the go, really. I think if you look down in this little corner down here, so up here, this is for like Bayern Munich match against Monaco, I think this week actually, and there's 4 kind of renditions of the match highlights. And what that enables us to do is in the left-hand one, we'll be watching the live stream come in, and the guys are able to kind of edit as they go across all 3. So because we're distributing this content to broadcasters as well, it needs to be in broadcast quality. So down here on the left-hand side, we've got our different kind of export settings, and DNX being one of the HD versions as well. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of different places we push to. So there's different YouTube channels, one for EuroLeague, one for Euro Cup. We've got MPEG-4, which is your traditional kind of social content, which we'll publish. Then the broadcasters use like an Imogen platform to access all the content, so we can push directly to Imogen as well. So on top of the match highlights, we'll also kind of create the in-play content as well, which can be pushed out on social and distributed to the social team as well. So that's another element. And is
that shorter and simpler clips than the highlights then that are getting pushed out a bit quicker? Yeah,
that could be anything from like a 30-second, not even that, 20-second clip of a moment. So similar to like last night. So I'm a Spurs fan, and obviously last night Spurs scored 2 goals in 2 minutes in stoppage time. So, you know, those moments that people want to access, they want to watch, that content turn around quickly, that is what we would use Blackbird for, to push to social. And also any storyline content, like let me want to delve a little bit deeper into story. There was Fenerbahce a couple of weeks ago had the most threes of the season or something. So we built quite a simple edit of all 21 threes in a row, that kind of content. And then EuroLeague also kind of leans quite heavily on branded content as well. So dunk of the night and things like that. And there's a lot of, I'm not sure you've mentioned this before, Ollie, or how, but there's a lot of pre-rolls and overlays we have to do for that content. And sometimes we use a lot of freelancers, so that can kind of be left up. Sometimes what used to happen is you put your overlay, you wouldn't be quite the right size or wouldn't be placed at the right time. Yeah. All that stuff's pre-programmed. So as soon as we put it on that button and it exports it, and you're more technical than me, but all that pre-roll, that post-roll, any kind of watermarks and stuff, it's all automated, which just speeds up the whole process. Because
absolutely, yeah. I mean, so for anyone who's listening, essentially, the reason Blackbird can do so much there is because all of the published functions, everything Alex is talking about multiple different file formats, multiple different destinations, those renders are happening within the media infrastructure. Right, what the user's doing in the browser is not a heavy lifting rendering tool. It's it's about flexibility and freedom to edit. So yeah, there's the ability to add pre-roll, post-roll, bumpers and slates, logo overlays, do custom aspect ratio publishing, and all of that yeah, as you said, Alex, can be fully automated inside the actual publish function itself. So
Exactly.
yeah, the idea is take any complexity away from the user and make it easy and quick for them to create the actual content itself.
And we've got like quite a good technical infrastructure at IMG Studio. So there's things like box scores that have to be on the EuroLeague highlights and things like that. And we've got watch flows automated. So that content can be exported from a Chiron, drops into a watch folder, and then Blackbird is looking at it, sucks it up, and then we can add it to our content as well. So you've got these team v team shields at the start, which kind of say who's playing. That's all done in advance of matches. Then you've got your highlights, and then there's these box scores at the end as well. So, and then if we push to YouTube, it's exactly the same rendition, but then there's like a YouTube kind of end card subscribe button we've got automated as well. And then, like I said, for EuroLeague, we do anything and everything. So we lean on this quite heavily for like archive as well. If we're doing a shoot with someone, we'll do maybe do a rough edit in Blackbird and then bring it into Premiere when we're adding like the talking heads, any name supers, anything like that. But a lot of the majority of our content, and even like our rough editing, is done within the Blackbird system. I think that's it, really.
Thanks. I mean, it's great to see. It's great for me to see, and I probably know more about it than anyone on the call. It's still really interesting, and I think it's that I know you're going to show us some more, but that use case itself is a really great explanation of why lots of our customers use Blackbird, and it's a multifaceted thing. So it's about speed, the ability to do speed of the turnaround of live, the ability to deliver branded, high quality, different kind of qualities of content out to different places. But one of the key things for us is exactly what you're talking about. It's the fact that you can have simple clipping, social, digital kind of content, and your highlights editing with multi-layers and effects and other kinds of advanced editing features in there, and also push through using as a workflow tool and an offline edit essentially that's going to deliver back into full craft finishing workflows as well. So it's great to see all of that within one account use there. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And I mean, we'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but the fact that we can use this in our browser and it's all in the cloud and everything, for EuroLeague particularly during COVID, because most of all these events are on the continent, they weren't really on the same COVID timescales as us, right? So when we were under lockdown, they weren't under lockdown, they're having matches, but we still need to cover those matches. So we could have a pretty small office presence, but we're still able to have basically the same output, really. There was no kind of drop in quality or drop in our service, simply because, and we pretty much lucked out. I don't think if we weren't using Blackbird at the time, we probably would have been by the end of the pandemic, because it is essential. So we kind of, like you're saying, being those early adopters there really helped us, especially for the EuroLeague project.
Yeah.
And then I'll briefly talk about, so this is for Prime UK. We create 20 to 30 minute highlights packages which sit on Amazon Prime. It would have been the kind of content that would have been before Prime would have bought the rights, would have been sitting on Sky Sports. Sky Sports would have all the live feeds, and then they have a daily wrap show. It's got like a British spin to it. So you can see here, I'm over a Dan Evans match. So because it's on Prime UK, the focus is always on British players. But this is a bit more of a traditional kind of broadcasty export that we use Blackbird for. We don't really use it. This is kind of, so it's...
Yeah, you can see we're down to 3 published destinations on the left.
Yeah, and I think we used to have one account that was called IMG Digital account, and they would have all these different sports going in, types, and all these different people in it, and it was just like completely overwhelming. So what we tend to do, and I probably should have touched on that at the beginning, is if we have an event or a client, we will just separate all those things out, because we have some clients who will want to check the content before we publish it and send it to them. So we give them access to and they can just edit as we go. So for Prime, it's the US Open. We covered Roland Garros last year as well, all the Masters events. And where this differs is we will have either voiceover links. So we'll have a remote voiceover. They'll send their VO over in WAV form. We can bring that into Blackbird as well. Or we also, because IMG do some of these bigger events as well, we will insert studio links. And that workflow is slightly different as well. So we'll be using EVS at IMG Studios, and they'll be pushing those clips via EVS into Blackbird. So I think we've got like
Yeah. So I know that for anyone who's interested at that point, we're taking live streams in, and at the same time, essentially just watching the near line that's out off the back of EVS. So all of that content, and for the user, they don't know what's happening in the background from a technical point of view, but essentially it allows both of those pools of media to be mixed and used immediately.
Yeah, it enables us to kind of let the studio team we can liaise with the studio team. They can record their links, so they can just push them out via EVS, and then they normally, it's a bad example because it's a new year and we've not done an event that way, but normally populates in the Blackbird upload folder, which we've got on our nearline, and it's a growing file, like these streams are growing as well. And yeah, this is a pretty simple kind of piece of work, really. It just tends to be quite one long file per day, and that gets pushed directly to Prime UK. Doesn't go on social or anything like that. It just sits on Prime. So that's kind of all there is to say about that one. But it's quite an interesting difference. We really use.
Yeah, you can see it's a very different piece of content. So obviously, when we were looking at the EuroLeague and we had the different use cases, the complexity there is in two things really. I think obviously we've got the branding aspect of multiple different types of content to multiple places and using branded assets and graphic overlays and things like that, and obviously the complexity in terms of getting the right thing to the right place as a publish output. But I can see from the edit you've got here, obviously, in this piece of content, it's the length, it's the duration and the quantity of media that we're dealing with, and obviously there's a fair bit of audio editing going on in this, and as anyone who's ever tried to do editing before knows, the audio is the difficult bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, just having this will sound crazy probably, but when we first started working with you guys, I think there might have been other like cloud people operators out there, but there was like no way of seeing waveform or anything like that, and that was like by my mind. And it still happens a little bit now. So the audio definitely helps us here as well, and the ability to, because we've got a half an hour show for those bigger events, we won't just have a self editor on it. We'll have a producer on those as well. And the producer, obviously a day of tennis is a long day, right? It could be 12 hours and the producer wants to see the edit as it's going. So this really enables us, wherever the producer is, just to kind of see how the edit's going really, and make sure that they can kind of review as we go. So it's pushed out as soon as the day's play's finished. We can kind of get that final day, those final links in for the day, and that can be pushed to Prime.
And I've got just one question, because it's relevant to what we're talking about, Alex.
Yeah.
Someone asking a bit more detail about, and which I can talk about, how the voiceover comes in. But they're asking, are you handling multiple languages here? Obviously, I can see 3 stereo pairs on the edit at this point. Is it do you know, are you doing English comms? Are you doing other languages as well?
It's just English. So this example here has got a studio link. You can see that there.
Yeah.
It's just English, but we have kind of used VO in 2 different ways. So we used to record it direct into Blackbird. So pre-COVID, we would have got a voiceover artist in, they would have watched the edit and they would have voiced it on the go, essentially.
Yeah.
But post-pandemic, or towards the end of the pandemic, we now just the VO person, because a lot of VO people have got this set at home now, it's actually a lot easier for them to just do a WAV file and we just upload it into the system that way. So yeah, just English, but we have had occasions, for example, where we would produce a bit of content and we would have multiple languages on it, not for this project. And that way you can kind of sit here. I think we set the export settings so it'd only be exporting tracks 3 and 4, which have English, and then the next one would be 5 and 6, because that would have German on it.
And I can just expand on that a bit to make sure we've covered that one. So essentially, as Alex touched on there's 2 ways to get voiceover content in, or any kind of media like this. One is that and I'll talk a bit more about this in a bit, but we can ingest it as we would ingest a live stream or any type of file or audio media or image or overlay or anything like that. And when I say ingest, what I mean is read and make it editable. We don't move that stuff to the cloud. So all of IMG's live streams are still within their network and their infrastructure. Or as Alex said, you can actually record voiceover straight into the Blackbird timeline. So there's 2 options there about how you do that, but once it's in there, the Blackbird editor has up to 36 audio tracks. So hopefully, I think more than anyone's ever needed at this point. And any one of those 36 tracks can be manipulated, edited, have transitions on it, keyframeable pan and level control. And as Alex said as well, there's also routing options out. So when you do a publish, we've got options to flatten down to a standard stereo pair output, or to actually route different tracks out to alternative tracks in the actual file that ends up being delivered. So if you are handling multiple languages, you could have multiple stereo pairs for your different language commentary or voiceover tracks. And when you publish, we could essentially give you multiple versions of that content with the right tracks routed to the right place for each endpoint. So there's quite a lot of flexibility about how audio is handled inside Blackbird in that kind of workflow.
Yeah, I mean, on EuroLeague, for the broadcasters, we have to give everyone an English language version and an ambient version. So that's one way. It's obviously not a language, but that's one way of getting two exports from that one file. I think someone did ask about, could you record direct into Blackbird on one of the questions? Yeah, we did. I think I did touch on that. Yeah, we did used to do that. We still could. I think it's a slightly different version of opening Blackbird in the browser. Is that right? There used to be one that was like VO record, I think.
There's a little microphone on just above your timeline next. That's the one. Yeah. So if you tap that, it will essentially use your laptop microphone and record directly in through your browser. Obviously, what's an option, as Alex was saying, if you want something higher quality than your laptop microphone might be, is that you can have an external microphone or even a USB desk, that would allow you to do some equalizing, compressor limiting and things like that on the way into the edit. So yeah, there's a few options there, but it's a direct to browser record of the voiceover.
Yeah, we used to have we have got like we have a lip mic and then just like a mini USB kind of mixer that you plug straight into your laptop, and you can just do it straight off the lip mic there, and it's pretty good quality. But like I said, most of the VO artists now that we work with have got a pretty good home setup as well. So
yeah,
it enabled us to be a bit more flexible. We can have a completely remote workflow with this project, really. And because a lot of the events we cover are through the night, getting freelancers or people to work on it can be quite challenging. So when you say to a VO artist, well, you've just got to get out of bed for 10 minutes, it's like quite an easy. So it's a lot easier to get freelancers on that as well. And the final one I was going to talk about, I realise we're kind of getting close to time here, but
no, don't worry about time.
Is the Open, which again is slightly different. Like we do everything we kind of would do for EuroLeague, but the Open's nice because it's probably the one event we do each year when it's the biggest thing going on in the world of sport, and there's all eyes on it. And we basically insert our team. We work within the RNA's existing content team. We've done it for a few years now, probably since about 2015. Producing highlights packages, in-play content, all the press conferences, and that work has kind of increased during COVID, because during COVID there wasn't as much accredited journalists on site and things like that. So we had to, every single press conference that took place at the Open had to be like top and tailed. These big 20-minute files just getting churned out and being pushed onto the Open's media center as well. But the main focus of what we do for the Open really is the in-play clips that we create. So the RNA can use a set number of, it's about 12 minutes a day, I think it is, and they're pushing out the content each day to social, to Twitter, and we're completely responsible for that. So I won't tweet anything, but as you can see, there's like some slightly different export settings down the side. So that again, they want the full HD stuff for DNX and the MPEG-4. We also push direct to Stream UK, which is what their website sits on. So we're pushing directly to their website, but also Twitter as well. So all these moments here on the right hand side, these are all things we've pushed to Twitter Media Studio, I think on a final day of the Open. So we normally produce there's probably between 40 and 50 in-play clips a day being pushed out. Then
quite a lot of content, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a lot when you've got, so you normally have about 3 people on site, but when you drop it on the bug, it will then hopefully, sorry, 1 second, it's already in there. I think what will happen, so then it opens up a box where you can write the tweet and everything, which is really helpful, and is really, there's real kind of focus on, you've got to get that first tee shot of the day out quicker than anyone else. you've got to get that winning moment, which is I've got up there of Morikawa this year out on social as quick as possible. Because the RNA kind of, there's obviously a lot of broadcast partners like Sky and the NBC and stuff, and the RNA want to own those moments as well.
Yeah,
that is where, yeah, like I said, it's a nice event to work on, because one, you're on location, two, you work within the RNA's team, which is a nice experience, but also working on that one event where all eyes are on it really, and we producing up here things like player highlights. We do like round in 60 seconds, so the best few players, Tiger's best round in 60 seconds. Then there'll be various clips, all the press conferences and things like that, and from that we're pushing direct to web and social. We don't, with EuroLeague and Amazon Prime, there's some element of a human interaction. So if EuroLeague, we're distributing the content to the EuroLeague social team, they will review it, they will publish it. For Amazon Prime, it's similar. It sits on their platform and they publish it. Whereas for the Open, we are solely responsible for distributing that content quickly and pushing it to Facebook, Twitter, etc.
Yeah, well, that's again, it's a familiar workflow for us. So we have our customers who work in the broadcast realm, and we see workflows very similar to what you've talked about with the Amazon Prime Tennis and the EuroLeague. But some of our customers who are leagues and federations or clubs and teams as well, in multiple different sports, exactly the same position, right? There's obviously broadcast rights, and then there's often smaller amounts of content that are allowed to be published from the actual federations and so on. And we've got a few of our customers where maximizing the reach of that content is the most important thing. So getting those quality moments out as quickly as you possibly can is important. And obviously because we've got the flexibility to do different types of content production, and we talked about automated branding and publishing and everything like that. Blackbird's the fastest way for you to be able to turn around live clips and get that out, and as well as obviously having the ability to do the more complex content as well.
I guess the last thing really to mention on it, we work quite closely with the audio team in our larger department. They also do the open radio, so there's like an audio. We sometimes send them just kind of WAV files of the commentary from the world feed. They can insert as
audio only as an output,
which is always really helpful as well. But yeah, I think that kind of is a very quick précis of 3 different events, I guess.
That was brilliant. It's really, really, really interesting, and I can tell it wasn't just interesting for me, because we've got quite a few questions come in as you were talking through. I'm sure everyone has really appreciated getting a glimpse into how you're using it and what those different use cases are. Definitely. So we'll keep going. Like I said, we'll come to some questions. I said I was going to show a bit, but I think one thing that would be interesting for me to do, because we've had a few questions come in asking about how live streams are ingested, what the IMG workflow is, whether we can export EDLs and things like that. It's probably good for me to just run through a slide and talk a bit about the architecture of Blackbird, right? And give everyone an idea of how this is happening. So if I share my screen again here, I'm going to start off on a slide. And essentially, Blackbird is a bit different to anything else, because we're not a platform that you send all of your source media or your streams to or anything like that. So we're not duplicating, compressing, or restricting what's happening to media. What we do is we work within your content infrastructure, and we install a piece of software. It's called Blackbird Edge. Okay, so in the IMG workflow specifically, the Blackbird Edge applications are actually running on-prem within Stockley House infrastructure. And as Alex already mentioned, we're taking live streams into these systems, as well as looking at file-based storage and EDS outputs and things like that. But Blackbird Edge can sit on a server, it can sit on a virtual machine, it can run in the cloud, in any of the public cloud providers. And as I said, read storage locations, as well as taking live streams in a variety of formats, as you can see there, working with partners of ours on acquisition and supporting standard stream protocols and so on. But the theory here is really that you don't move your media, your streams or your files to us. We put Blackbird Edge wherever they exist right now. So that can be on-prem, like IMG, taking streams and reading EDS infrastructure, or it could be in your own AWS, reading from an S3 bucket, or indeed, as one question touched upon, looking at MAM or CMS infrastructure, storage, whatever you need. So what happens is, as soon as Blackbird Edge sees a piece of content or gets a stream, we turn it into our format, and that's what we have the patents around, really, and is our core technology, as a way of handling video in a browser that is different to anything else that's out there. So you'll have noticed when Alex was working, he has instant access, full navigation of the media, access to every single frame of any amount of content, live or file, immediately. And then obviously with that, we can do some pretty advanced manipulation and editing. I mentioned 36 audio tracks, it's 18 video tracks, blur effect, color correction, real-time transitions, audio and video mixing, transform controls, voiceover, captions, subtitles, the list goes on. It's what is unique about Blackbird is the ability to perform those tasks inside that browser environment, not in a desktop application where you're moving media around. So the streams and the media stays here. The editable content comes into the Blackbird cloud, and that's what the users connect to. So you can be on a live stream editing multi-track real-time edits on as little as 2 meg internet. It's extremely efficient in terms of bandwidth. There's no high connectivity needed or special hardware needed or anything like that. When the user publishes something, as we've discussed, they drag onto a particular publish endpoint, and that job comes back to the Blackbird Edge infrastructure inside our customer or partner media infrastructure there. And the Blackbird Edge then will do its second job, which is to use that source media again to actually render, conform, and deliver the final asset. So what that means is that the publish job is not sat with the user. They're not waiting for a render, and that's why we've got no heavy requirements on the user end of things. But it also means that when we deliver something out, and this can come back into storage or straight to social media or back to a CDN or a MAM or whatever, wherever you need that to come, it can be anything, like we've said, from a relatively low bit rate H.264 for social media or digital, up to, as we've also discussed, DNX HD or a really high bit rate MXF wrapped file for broadcast distribution or anything in between.
Also,
sorry, Alex, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I didn't touch on it, but Square Video as well. Like, pretty much all of our content we push out in Square as well. So you guys have always been pretty helpful. I think when probably about 4 years ago, we said we need to have Square Video, and I think someone at your end was like, "Why do you need Square Video?" I was like, "Well, that's how people are consuming stuff on Instagram." Yeah, you guys were pretty quick at arranging that and sorting that. So that is also very helpful as well. We'll just point out. Yeah. I think we don't do vertical, but I think you guys can do vertical through. We
can essentially set custom resolutions and therefore aspect ratios on publish and really deliver out whatever's needed. So there's a couple of real advantages to this before I move off the architecture, and one, as I've said, is the fact that you don't have to move your content out to someone else, right? We are integrated into your infrastructure, your storage, your MAM, your live streams, whatever that might be, whether it's in the cloud or on premise. The second, as we've mentioned, is the quality. So there's never any degradation of the quality of the output file, and lots of flexibility around what we're delivering and how we're delivering it. But really the other big benefit here, and Alex talked about this with the requirements when COVID hit, but it's around scale and accessibility for users. So certainly if we look at tools that would normally be required to do more complex editing, they are desktop applications. And if you need someone to work on it, you've either got to get the media to them, and there's lots of downloading and uploading going on, or you've got to get them connected to a machine running somewhere else. And then you're looking at virtual machine infrastructure and connectivity for every single user. So Blackbird architected like this, and having the technology that allows us to be browser-based brings a lot of benefits there. And just to kind of finish off with a couple of questions about outputs. So as you can see here, we do have the ability to deliver XML metadata sidecars. We can ingest certain amounts of asset metadata and so on. And we have APIs that allow logging and event-based or even AI-driven metadata to be pushed into the platform. And we can deliver out EDLs, so JSON EDL outputs, AAF outputs back into Avid and Premiere. And that's one of the workflows Alex talked about on the EuroLeague account was for the very high-end content, the ability to construct it in Blackbird and then deliver either files or EDLs back into a Premiere or Avid or whatever you might need to do the finishing and the effects on as well. So hopefully that answers a few questions in the list there from the kind of technical point of view on that side. Now we're getting close on time, so we're just going to take a couple more questions, and please do hang on if you can. If you've got to go, thanks for joining us. But Alex, I just wanted to throw a couple of these questions to you before we finish. I'm going to ask you about something I think that gets talked about a lot nowadays, which is data. I was just talking about data input and output, and we've had a lot of conversations recently about the potential of bringing external data in. How is that starting to shape your workflows and how you're using tools?
Yeah, I guess it's like twofold really. So it's kind of the automation of content. So there's a lot of tools out there like WSC, which I know the NBA use quite a lot for their automated content, and Unity do use a little bit as well. Which use data. So the automation of content, removing human element. So I think a bit of content I referenced earlier was 21 Fenerbahce threes in a row or something. That content in theory could be automated, right, if we didn't have someone across those games. So a lot of clients do come to us asking if we can bring data feeds in, and if we can create content on the back of that. So yeah, definitely in that side, but then just more generally in the story, like to help us make storytelling decisions as well. At the moment, otherwise it's just us kind of looking across a match report or actually watching the match physically. Having that integrated data will kind of let us make those decisions more easier, and it might mean we can spot things that we wouldn't have already spotted. So I guess it's kind of the very literal technological version of it, and also just to help shape our storytelling as well. I don't know if I really answered that, but yeah, more like data feeds from people like Opta and people and things like that, which there's more and more desire, I think, for us to integrate more of.
I think what we've I've been around in the kind of broadcast graphics world for quite a long time before, and there was a period of time where data was generated for use in its own right. Right? Like you said, we've got data feeds, we've got information, and we're going to try and display that information or get it to someone. And obviously that's existed for a long time. What we see a lot more of now is data there to inform and allow people to use other tools better. So obvious reasons, obvious ones around transcriptions and closed captions and searchability and things where it's not the data itself that's important in terms of the output, it's the use of it within the production workflow.
Yeah, and I think I might have, we don't use it, but I'm sure I've seen some, like there's an ability, because you can log it in Blackbird as well, right? Which we don't really use, but I think I've been shown from your side, there's a way of inserting that data. It almost creates like a logging system, which is definitely something, I'll be looking at exploring in the near future for sure.
Yeah, you can live log in Blackbird, and we get used for that a fair bit. But as I said before, we can also have external data coming in and going out of the platform. So the goal there is to make it as usable and searchable and fast and efficient as we can. And before we run out of time and everyone has to drop off, Alex, so we've got a question now. Some people on the call have obviously read our paper on sustainability. It's something that we've been doing a lot of work on last year, looking at how the industry approaches this and how Blackbird can play into that, again using some of the efficiencies we talked about. We just did the IBC Accelerator project just before Christmas to dig deeper into this. How is sustainability starting to factor into the way you're doing productions and the decisions you're making?
I mean, it's quite a big kind of thing to factor in, because IMG is part of Albert with the likes of the BBC and I think Sky as well. So every time we do a budget for a piece of work, there's like an Albert calculator associated. So it figures out how much carbon you're using, then how much you need to spend to offset that carbon as well. So every project, sustainability comes into it. And also pre-pandemic, we was under like pressure to not send as many people on site to do certain things. So for the Open, for example, we used to have a bigger presence on site, whereas now we will kind of have a split team. So some people back at IMG Studios in Stockley Park, and some people on location to kind of factor out the flights and things like that. And then obviously COVID just accelerated that massively now. So we had to be remote for everything. So yeah, sustainability is massive, and yeah, using Blackbird's really helpful because we don't even need to travel to the office. People don't even need to get in their car to use it. Like if you have a game night and there's only a couple of matches, we'd say when there's no point coming to the office, you can work from home, and that obviously helps in that way as well. So yeah, a big factor for sure. Can't quite hear you, Ollie. I'm not sure about anyone else. But you're not on mute.
How about now, Alex?
I can sort of hear you now, I think.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's a good time to end then, I suppose. So I will just say thank you to everyone who's joined. Thanks for the time. Alex, a big thanks for opening the door and letting us all have a look at what you're doing and how you're doing it. It's really, really interesting. We did have some questions unanswered. We haven't got time, unfortunately, to go through all of them. But if you want to get in touch, anyone who's on there, you can see the email up there, or you can pop to our website. I'm more than happy to jump on and give every single one of you a demo if you'd like it, or just drop us an email and we can answer any of those unanswered questions as well. So thanks again, Alex. Really appreciate it.
No, appreciate it. It's been good to chat. And yeah, if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me quite easily. But if you want to give me a shout, that's absolutely fine.
A flood of requests coming in. All right. Thanks again, Alex, and thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Thanks everyone.